Ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand?
Moon river, wider than a mile, I'm crossing you in style someday. Oh, dream maker, you heartbreaker, wherever you're going, I'm going your way. Two drifters off to see the world. There's such a lot of world to see. We're after the same rainbows and waiting round the bend. My huckleberry friend, Moon River, and me. Oh, dream maker, you heartbreaker, wherever you're going, I'm going your way. Two drifters off to see the world. There's such a lot of world to see. We're after that same rainbow's end, waiting round the bend. My huckleberry friend, Moon River, and me.
Good morning and welcome. Today we gather to remember the life of Valerie McKell, or Val as she was fondly known, a wife, a partner, a mother, a grandmother, a sister, an aunt, and a friend to anybody who ever met her. I want to thank you today for your expressions of love and condolences. And I know that your presence here today means a lot to Val's family and to those close to her. And on behalf of Val's children, Anne, Megan, Robert and Cindy and their families, I'd like to thank you for coming along this morning as we gather to remember her life. Your presence here today is an encouragement. but it's also a source of comfort. We're comforted through those who have suffered loss, who have experienced the pain of losing a loved one. And we draw alongside Anne and Megan and Robert and Cindy and their families today, and we comfort as we've been comforted. If you've lost a loved one, you have some idea of what they're going through. And you provide that comfort today through a hug, a kind word, or just being near and being here today. So thank you. I'd like to give you a very brief account of Val's life and family, but you'll hear so much more from Robert as he delivers the eulogy today. Val was born on the 21st of May 1929, the youngest of 3 children to Robert and Mabel Hawes, or Bob and Mabs as they were known. She married Tom McKell on the 14th of March 1953, and they had 5 children: Anne, Megan, Robert, Cindy and John. Valerie became a grandmother to Silas, to Rosie, to Rasheen, to Minerva, to James, to Tom, to Amelia and to Jake. She also became a great-grandmother to Banjo, to Cleo, to Winslet, to Indy and to Elijah. And about 10 years ago she became a puppy mum to Nikki. Nikki is going to now be lovingly cared for by Cindy and Glenn, so our appreciation to Cindy and Glenn. Still negotiating. All right. Well, if you get it over Cindy, you're doing well. All right. Just over 3 years ago, Val was diagnosed with cancer and given about 3 months to live. And not for the first time, she defied the odds. Although with her short-term memory loss, the cancer diagnosis wasn't so upsetting for Val. She walked out of the doctor's office and promptly forgot all about it. Her overall health didn't start to decline until last year. And it was only a week before Christmas, at 93 years old, that she was hospitalised after a fall. And she quietly passed on Christmas Eve. As I said, she was 93 years old when she passed, and that's quite a lot by anybody's standards. And she leaves us with a lot of memories. And that's a good thing, because memories are the things that keep a person alive in our minds. We're going to see a photo presentation that will bring those memories to mind and help us to reflect on a life well lived. All right, if you look at the screen. Thanks, Matt.
Unforgettable, that's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far, like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you does things to me. Never before has someone been more unforgettable in every way, and forevermore. That's how you stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. in every way, and forevermore, that's how you stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. Unforgettable, that's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far, like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you does things to me. Never before has someone been more unforgettable in every way.
I think the most common theme there was the smile. It was never too far away from her face. Robert's going to tell us a little bit more about it now. Thanks, Robert.
Thanks everybody for coming, and what a beautiful day. We've done well, not too hot, not too cold, and surrounded by loved ones. You can't ask for much more. Valerie McKell Halls was born on the 21st of May 1929 in Waverley, and she was baptised in Toowoomba in 1934, where her father's family lived. Her parents, Bob, a journalist, and Mabel, or her preferred name, Mabs Halls, and older siblings, Craig and Joan, lived in Toowoomba for a few years and then moved to Coogee. The family moved several times throughout her childhood, as her father preferred Haberfield and her mother preferred Cremorne. They were known as Moppet and Poppet by all their grandchildren. Mum, in her words, had an idyllic childhood, and she remembered how many happy holidays she had around Manly and Terrigal. During the Second World War, when Craig and Joan left home to serve in the Army respectively, the Army and the Navy, Bob was away from home a lot in Canberra, as he was liaising with the government and was Director of Information. He felt that it would be too difficult for Moppet to look after Mum while he was away so often, and as she was always also involved in contributing to the war effort and had a very busy life at that time, so Mum became a boarder at Winona's School in North Sydney, where she loved in which she loved, and she had a cousin there also, Margaret Gillan from Bombala. In school holidays, she stayed with the family in Bombala, where when they had a beautiful farm called Willowvale. Mum adored her then principal of Winona, Miss Ralston, as they got on famously together and had a special bond. One story Mum told us about was when she was annoyed or stressed at school, when everything was getting a bit too much for her. Miss Ralston had a special place where she was allowed to go in, and she could let off steam by actually throwing bottles in a bin, and there you go. Miss Ralston, she was obviously made a big impression on Mum. So when Mum left, she studied and passed her exams to become a teacher in elocution and returned to the school to work as a trainee kindergarten teacher and a boarding house supervisor. She kept her reference from Miss Ralston, and the reference virtually said that what a delightful and charming person Mum was, with a great sense of humour And she was very easy to get along with. And really that was Mum to a T, and she never really changed at all. Mum was a member of various drama groups and small theatres, and was an experienced amateur actress and spent many, many happy times as a member of Sydney Bushwalking Club. And she mentioned this a lot in her final years, and with that memory going a bit, sometimes you would hear that quite a few times a day. But yeah, she also taught us patience in our older years and her older years, and it was much appreciated. And you know what, that patience is something you'll take forever. And yeah, it was one of the many things Mum taught us. Mum was a member of various drama groups. I think I said that. As you know, as you all know, Mum loved people and was a very sociable and outgoing person. And through her acting, had a very happy social life in the early 50s, mixing with the bohemian artistic society in Sydney and frequenting coffee shops in eastern Sydney and the city. And she was friendly with many artists around that area. She was unofficially engaged to the artist John Coburn, the abstract artist whose tapestries were hung as curtains in the Sydney Opera House for many years. But both were really not ready for marriage at that time, and Mum also said, look, she didn't really think she appreciated him at that time. You get that? Lucky for Tom. After working at Winona School for 4 years, Mum started working as a sales assistant at Dimmick's bookstore in George Street, where she met Dad, who also worked at the store as well. She told us she was fascinated by this tall, dark, handsome stranger who was very mature and sophisticated. And and how lovely. And it's a beautiful thing that Mum always remembered. First meeting Dad and yeah, obviously was quite blown out. And Mum too, which is quite beautiful. Upon her return, Mum actually went to New Zealand after meeting Dad, and she worked on a sheep station for a couple of months. On her return, she and Dad got married, and they were married on the 14th of March in 1953 at St Thomas's Church in North Sydney, where she was confirmed, and the reception was held at her parents' home in Cremorne. Mum spent her early married life in Miranda, living with Dad's aunt Cynthia and her husband John, and this is where the oldest child, Anne, was born. The family then moved to the small beachside town of Kingscliff in the Tweed Heads Shire, where Megan, Rob, John and Cindy were born, and they took over the lease of a mixed business shop and cafe opposite the beach from Mum's parents, and they actually returned to Sydney just after that. Anne and Megan remember Mum teaching Sunday school to the Aboriginal community in nearby Chindera. Mum and Dad worked very, very hard. And we have fond memories of swimming at the beautiful local beach and eating ice cream from the shop. We also remember Anne standing on chairs and to get us lollies that they hid on the top shelves, and it was always advantageous having a taller older sister, because we all love lollies, and some things don't change. Okay, from there, look, things didn't work out so good there. They lasted there for 6 years, and then the family returned to Sydney after that period. And we ended up moving to Kingswood near Penrith. The children all remember a childhood there where they lived in a small community with plenty of bush close by and many trips to Bents Basin at Greendale on the Hawkesbury River. A further move occurred later on when the family moved near Liverpool, where we spent out the remainder of our childhood, guys, and we lived there till we finished our school years. It was a very difficult life for Mum with 5 children to look after, and she had to work periodically to help support her family, and she worked full time as we got older. We all remember Mum as perpetually rushing as she had to organise the kids while also working, because Dad worked at Graham Bookstore in the city and had long commutes. Things became better when he became manager of Graham Bookstore at Bankstown Square, which made things that little bit easier. Mum suffered throughout her life from severe migraines, which didn't help matters. Mum worked for many years full-time as assistant manager at Jones's bookstore in Roselands, and then, wanting a complete break, she worked in retail at Grace Brothers. Her great joys was always her garden, but she certainly, she definitely had a green thumb, that's for sure. She also had a great love of reading, and she played tennis and was very, very good. And she always used to hang out with one of her best friends, Yvonne Smith, and every Friday night they'd always head out and with a whole lot of friends and play tennis. Mum always made friends easily and loved organising a Christmas party every New Year's Eve, and all the friends and neighbours were always invited. When Dad passed away at the age of 51, Mum continued to work before retiring in her late 50s. She moved to the house which she had built at Gwandolin with her partner Brian, where she had spent most of her free time during weekends and holidays while she was working. The children all banded together and finished paying off the mortgage as a surprise, which enabled Mum to move before reaching too older an age. And I still remember the big smile on her face, and it really meant a lot to her and it meant a lot to us because she'd worked for so long. Mum adored her home in Gwandolin and spent many, many contented years making a garden, playing bowls and socialising at the local bowling club. She loved having Megan's children for holidays, which allowed Megan to continue work. Brian passed away and Mum eventually met a new partner, Cole, and this really blew us out. Mum's one of her dreams was always to have a house with a veranda, which she got with the house she built at Gwandolin, and she always wanted to go around Australia. And so Cole was a pretty clever guy with his hands. They had many trips around Australia and met many friends, and it was a highlight of her life. You know, as Anne said, they were the happiest times of her life. And when Cole passed away, Mum came to live in a cottage on Anne's property at Kangiangi. She acquired her dog Nicky the same year, and she doted very much on him. She lived in the cottage for the last 10 years of her life and loved making her garden. Reading, as I said, a great love, being with Nicky and enjoying the view from the deck. She spent years playing indoor bowls each week with her friends at Lake Memorial Senior Citizens Club and attended the Gorokan Activity Centre in her final years. She was known as the Queen by the staff and her fellow companions because she loved being involved in everything. And there's a beautiful photo of Mum which headlined an article in the most recent Integrated Living magazine, and it's on the order of service. It is Mum's smile that we all will remember. Every time we saw her, she would always have a smile on her face. Most people mentioned that what they most remember about her was that smile, her sense of humour and her laughter. She was always genuinely happy to see people and was unfailingly accommodating towards visitors. She always welcomed the steady stream of our friends when we were growing up, and she never seemed to mind. Mum had a long and a happy life, and she was always very shocked to hear she was 93. As she was sure she was in her early 30s. Each day was a clean slate, and she generally found joy in everything she saw, whether it was watching the birds and the animals in the bush from her beautiful deck, looking at and attending her garden, or cuddling Nicky. We all think that's what prolonged her life over the last couple of years. To my beautiful Mum, we were very much loved, and we're all very gifted, and you know what? With Mum and Dad, God, we're all lucky. Vale to Vale.
Thanks, Robert. We have a couple of poetry readings now. Anne, would you like to come up?
Thank you. Mum always read us a lot of poetry when we were growing up. Late Fragment by Raymond Carver. And did you get what you wanted from this life, even so? I did. And what did you want? To call myself beloved, to feel myself beloved on the earth. And Mum, you were beloved.
All right. Min?
May the road rise to meet you. May the wind always be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face.
The rain falls soft on your fields until we meet again.
Thank you. Val's passing leaves a void that will be extremely hard to fill. And it'll take some getting used to for Anne, for Megan, for Robert and Cindy and their families. Our thoughts and prayers are with them over the coming days, weeks and months, until hopefully time dulls that ache, but not the memories. The family also wanted to thank Anne and Rob for providing a home for Val for the last 10 years. They want to thank Cindy and hopefully Glenn for taking care of Nikki. And to Rob McKell, who just gave the eulogy for being her carer for the last 5 years. We're going to have a closing song shortly. It may appear to be an unusual choice, but it was a song that Rob would play for his mum and get her up to dance to it. If we've learned anything from Val's life today, it would be from her love of people, her love of family, her love of relationships. And it would be that relationships with family are the most important things in our lives. And so our hope today is that the service will bring us a little closer to each other and bring each one of us a degree of comfort as we pay tribute to and remember Val's life. Again, thank you for being with us today and for your love, comfort and support. If you're able, following the service this morning, the family extends an invitation to you to share memories and refreshments at Anne and Rob's place at 55 Valley Road at Kangiangi. Thank you.
Well, sometimes I go out by myself and I look across the water, and I think of all the things what you're doing, and in my head I paint a picture. Well, since I come home, well, my body's been a mess, and I miss your ginger hair and the way you like the daggers. Won't you come on over? Stop making a fool out of me. Oh, why don't you come on over, Valerie? Did you have to go to jail? Put your house up for sale? Did you get a good lawyer? I hope you didn't catch a thing. I hope you find the right man who'll fix it for you. And now you're shopping and anywhere, change the color of your hair. And are you busy? And did you have to pay that fine that you were dodging all the time? Are you still dizzy? Since I come home, well, my body's been a mess, and I miss your ginger hair and the way you like the daggers. I want you to come on over and stop making a fool out of me. Why don't you come on over, Valerie? Valerie, Valerie, Valerie. Well, sometimes I go out by myself and I look across the water, and I think of all the things what you're doing, and in my head I paint a picture. But since I come home, Well, my body's been a mess, and I miss your tender hair and the way you like the jacket. Won't you come on over and stop making a fool out of me? Why don't you come on over, Valerie? Valerie, yeah. Valerie, Valerie, yeah. Oh, Valerie, oh, Valerie.